I remember everything as if it happened yesterday. The smell of old wood, the soft creaking of the floorboards with each step, the wind whispering through the trees. The cabin was isolated, lost deep in the forest, hours away from any town. It was my friend Lucas' idea, a weekend getaway to disconnect, forget the rush of city life, and enjoy nature. I should have said no. On the way there, I remember Lucas mentioning something odd. He had struggled to find any real history about the cabin online. It was as if it had just appeared on the rental site with no prior record. Probably just an old hunting lodge, he shrugged. I laughed it off at the time. I shouldn't have. On the first night, I felt something strange. It wasn't anything specific, just an uneasiness. As if the silence was too heavy, as if we were being watched. But I tried to ignore it. We laughed, had a few beers, and played cards late into the night. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up to a sound. A faint noise, almost imperceptible, coming from beneath the floor. It was rhythmic, spaced apart, as if someone was gently knocking under the wooden planks. I stayed still, listening. My heart pounded. "Lucas?" I called out, but he was snoring deeply on the other couch. I tried convincing myself it was nothing, maybe just an animal outside. But then the sound came again. 3 knocks. 3 knocks. I got up slowly, each step echoing in the empty cabin. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it at the floor. The sound was coming from right beneath me. The wood looked darker there, as if it had been patched up a long time ago. I crouched down, trying to hear better. That's when I felt it. A faint breath of cold air escaping through a crack between the planks. And then a whisper. It wasn't the wind. It was a voice. It dragged up, almost imperceptible. "Help me." My whole body froze. My breath hitched, my limbs locked in place. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I wanted to scream, but my throat closed up. The phone's light started flickering. The sound continued, now stronger, more desperate. I ran to Lucas and shook him frantically. "We need to get out of here." No. He was slow to understand, still groggy, but my expression must have been enough to convince him. We grabbed our backpacks without packing anything properly and ran to the car. As we sped down the dirt road, I looked back. The cabin stood there, swallowed by darkness. And then I saw it, a faint candlelight flickering behind the window. But we had turned off all the lights before leaving. We never found out the history of that cabin. We never went back. But sometimes, when everything is quiet, the knocking starts again. It was early autumn, and the leaves had already painted the landscape in shades of orange and red. I decided to spend a weekend alone in a cabin I had rented near a lake, hoping for some peace and inspiration for my projects. The cabin was rustic but cozy, nestled miles away from the nearest town, ensuring the isolation I craved. On the first night, after a day of exploring the area and taking photos of the scenery, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, enjoying the stillness interrupted only by the occasional sound of nocturnal animals. As I gazed at the reflection of the moon on the lake, I noticed a faint light flickering between the trees on the other side of the shore. I assumed it was another camper or perhaps someone fishing at night, so I didn't give it much thought. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I was startled awake by a distinct sound, slow, deliberate footsteps on the porch. My heartbeat quickened. I immediately recalled the flickering light I had seen earlier and wondered if someone had decided to pay an unexpected visit. Moving cautiously, I grabbed my flashlight and crept toward the window in the living room. Through a crack in the curtain, I saw a figure standing near the front door. It was a man of average height, wearing dark clothing and a cap that obscured part of his face. He seemed to be peering into the windows, scanning the interior. My blood ran cold. I was in the middle of nowhere, with no neighbors nearby, and a stranger was lurking outside my cabin in the middle of the night. I decided not to turn on the lights, hoping he would think no one was inside. I watched as he circled the cabin, testing the windows and checking the back door. My mind raced with possibilities. Who was he? What did he want? Was he just lost, or did he have more sinister intentions? Then I heard it, a faint whisper, almost inaudible, just outside my bedroom window. "I know you're in there." A slow, deliberate breath fogged up the glass. My breath caught in my throat. My entire body went rigid. The sound of my own heartbeat roared in my ears. I clutched my phone tightly, my fingers trembling as I dialed 911. No signal. Of course, no signal. I stood frozen, barely breathing. The whispering continued, almost playful now, followed by the soft, deliberate scratching of nails against the wooden window frame. Then silence. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. Then the sound of a car engine starting. I rushed to another window and saw an old truck pulling away from the cabin, its taillights fading into the darkness. Relief washed over me, but only for a second. As the first light of dawn crept through the trees, I cautiously stepped outside. The air was crisp, the world eerily silent. That's when I saw them, footprints circling the cabin, leading from the lake all the way to my porch. But something was wrong. The footprints didn't go back. Whoever had been watching me never left. Then I saw it. On the wooden door, just below the handle, deep scratches, letters carved into the wood. A single word, soon, and on the bedroom window, smeared in something dark, a handprint, larger than mine, still fresh. It was late November, and the first hints of winter were settling in. I had planned a solitary retreat to a remote cabin nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains, seeking solace and a break from the relentless pace of city life. The cabin was rustic, miles away from the nearest town, and accessible only by a narrow, winding dirt road. Upon arrival, the weather was crisp but calm. The forecast mentioned a possible storm, but nothing alarming. I settled in, lighting a fire in the old stone hearth and unpacking my supplies. The tranquility was palpable, with only the occasional rustle of leaves and distant calls of wildlife breaking the silence. I spent the day hiking, capturing photos of the frozen landscape and appreciating the solitude. As night fell, the wind began to pick up, howling through the trees with an eerie resonance. Snow started to fall, lightly at first, then transformed into a blinding blizzard. The cabin creaked under the assault of the wind, and the windows rattled as if protesting the onslaught. By midnight, I was trapped. The snow had piled high, covering the roads and burying my car under thick layers of ice. At first, I wasn't too worried. The cabin was well stocked, and I had enough firewood to last a few days. But then the power flickered and went out completely. The only light came from the dim, flickering flames in the fireplace. I grabbed my phone to check for service. No signal. Of course. Then, amidst the howling wind, I heard it, a heavy thud against the cabin wall. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was just the wind, maybe a tree branch falling. But then it came again. Deliberate, rhythmic. I shone my flashlight toward the window, and my breath caught in my throat. A shadowy figure stood pressed against the glass, its features obscured by frost and darkness. My mind raced. No one should be out here, not in this storm. Before I could react, the figure moved away, disappearing into the white abyss. I rushed to the door, making sure it was locked. My pulse pounded in my ears. I tried to rationalize what I saw. Maybe it was a lost traveler, but something felt wrong. The wind screamed outside. I sat near the fireplace, clutching a fire poker, listening. Hours passed. Then, just as I was drifting off, I heard it again. Knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. I didn't move. My breath hitched. I strained to listen over the storm. Then, another sound. A second knock. From inside the cabin. I spun around, shining my flashlight into the darkness. The cabin was empty. I was alone, wasn't I? Morning couldn't come fast enough. When the storm finally broke, I hesitated before stepping outside. The snow was deep, untouched, except for a set of footprints leading from the lake to my cabin. But there were no footprints leading away. I turned, a chill racing down my spine. That's when I saw it. On the inside of my bedroom window, smeared in frost, was a single word, "Let me in." Somewhere out there, in the depths of the woods, cabins still stand, waiting. Some hold secrets buried beneath their floorboards, others whisper to those who dare to listen. And some Some are never truly empty. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. But tell me, which story haunted you the most? Have you ever experienced something like this? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy hearing stories that keep you awake at night, make sure to subscribe. Because out here, in the darkness, some things are always watching. Sweet dreams, if you can sleep.